questions or concerns will have an opportunity to speak. The committee will make their decision following each application. If there is anyone present who is not an applicant and/or an agent but is interested in the decision of the committee, you may file your interest with our Secretary Treasurer. Please list the file number and your full name and mailing address. With the postal situation, an email address will probably suffice for the time being. Copies of the decisions are automatically sent to the applicant and agent within 15 days of the meeting, and again, those will, I would imagine, be emailed for the next until next month anyway. Only the applicant, the minister, a specified person, or any public body may appeal decisions in respect to applications for consent or minor variances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The decisions are final and there are no appeals 20 days after, if there are no appeals 20 days after the committee's decision. May I remind everyone that you're being recorded, and to mute your devices, as well as if you wish to speak to an application, make your way to the podium, ensure your mic is on, and state your first and last name for the record. So I'll do a bit of a roll call. We have Linda online. Hello, Linda. And Laura Lee is joining us online as well. We have Phil and Councillor Van Passen, Councillor Berry, and myself present with Annette, the acting Secretary Treasurer. First order of business is to determine if any members have any disclosures of interest when considering any of the applications that we will be dealing with today. Are there any disclosures of interest? Hearing none. Have all the members, excuse me, have all the members received the minutes of the previous meeting? Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none. I have a resolution. I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of the October 23rd meeting as circulated. Moved by Phil. Seconded by Councillor Berry. Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
Thank you, Linda, and that is carried. Okay. Our first application to be considered is ANPL 2024-291 in the name of Devos Farms, and the planner can give the report, please.
Will do. Just give me one fair moment here to share my screen with the appropriate PowerPoint for you. And there we go. Just let me know through you, Mr. Chair, when you actually can see the screen, if that's appropriate for you to identify that for me. That would be great. I appreciate that.
Not at this time, we can't. Oh, here it comes. There we go.
All right. So again, this is for Committee of Adjustment. We're starting with the first initial file here. So this is related to ANPL 2024-291, being Devos Farms Limited. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to identify the actual municipal description of the property and the identified legal description as well. So this is identified as 160 La Salette Road. Excuse if I've not pronounced that correctly, but it is WDM Concession 8, Part Lot 23, Part 5, Plan 37R11494 in Wyndham. So the purpose of the application is to vary the provisions of subsections 321A and G in Norfolk County's comprehensive zoning bylaw, being 1Z 2014, to permit a detached garage with a maximum height of 7.32 meters, whereas 6 meters is required and permitted, and to permit an accessory dwelling unit to occupy 10% of the lot area to a maximum of 132.5 square meters of usable floor area, whereas a maximum of 100 square meters of usable floor area is permitted. Again, you'll see on this map A, being the context map, you will see where this is the subject lands at hand. You can see the location relative to where this is provided for the application. This might be a more appropriate plan to have a better discussion with regard to what is being proposed. You can see on the conceptual plan very indicatively what they are proposing and where they're proposing to do so. It is in the rear yard. The official plan is within a hamlet designation. They are within the hamlet residential zone. The effect of this application would be permit the construction of a detached garage, accessory to a single detached dwelling unit. This proposes the signage at hand with respect to the application to identify that notice was prepared for the application and provided. As you know, as committee, and I will try not to belabor this point, but Section 45(1) of the Planning Act provides for the granting of minor variances from the relief of the provisions of the zoning bylaw to the Committee of Adjustment. Relief may only be granted if the provisions passes the four tests of the request. The committee must be satisfied the application has satisfied all four tests to approve the minor variance. Again, notice was provided not only through this purpose, but through actual applications that were sent with complete application documents to authorities having jurisdiction and those within 60 meters of the subject property. The applications for authorities having jurisdictions that were provided were Canada Post, who had no comments, Norfolk County GIS with no comments, Norfolk County Fire Department with no comments, Norfolk County Zoning, who had no comments, the local Indigenous communities, there were no comments received in that regard. Hydro 1, no comments received. Union Gas, no comments received. And the Norfolk County Development Engineering Department did provide some comments being related to a lot grading and drainage plan, which will be required at the time of building permit application. An entrance permit and the installation of an entrance permit is required at the time of building permit issuance, which is a comment only. Driveways are to be a minimum of 30 meters away from an intersection, which is a comment only. The daylighting triangle is to be established for sightline along the intersection of Wyndham Road 19 and Last Salette Road. Again, a comment. And Norfolk County Building Department has also stated they have reviewed the proposal and have no comments at this time. However, they do note that no Ontario Building Code review has been conducted of the subject property and proposed development at this time. No comments from the public have been received. Planning staff have reviewed the application and recommend that application ANPL 2024-291 for relief to permit a detached garage to be approved. The reason for this recommendation is that in accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested minor variance does satisfy the four tests of the Planning Act as it meets the intent of the official plan. The zoning bylaw is desirable for the intended use of the lands and is continued and considered to be minor in nature. I am happy to answer further comments as the committee would request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present? Okay, we'll get to you in a second. Any questions of the committee? Does the applicant have anything to add? You have to come up to the microphone. He indicates he has nothing to add. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak to this application? Does the committee have any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, the recommendation is for approval. Can I get a motion from the committee, please? Councillor Berry moves to approve. And a seconder? Phil, thank you. So file number ANPL 2024291 in the name of DeVos Farms. In accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the proposed development is minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received, and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor? Linda? There
Yes.
you go. Thank
yes.
you. And that is carried. Just want me. Okay. Next up is ANPL 2024-303 in the name of Kevin Elliott, and the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. Just please confirm that you can see the slideshow from the current slide. If that's confirmed through you, Mr. Chair, I'll proceed.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that everyone could see
Yep,
that. So
we can see your screen.
Thank
fine.
you. All right, thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, this is minor variance application ANPL 2024-303, the applicant being Mr. Kevin Todd Elliott. This application has been received to vary the provisions of subsections 321 of the county's comprehensive zoning bylaw, being 1Z 2014, to permit the construction of an additional dwelling unit having a maximum height of 8 meters and a maximum usable floor area of 297 square meters, and to the provisions of subsection 3.23I to permit an accessory dwelling unit with a usable floor area of 95.79 square meters, the effect of which will permit a new residential accessory dwelling unit within an accessory structure, The application has been submitted to request permission for the construction of this accessory dwelling unit on Old Highway 24 in the geographic township of Townsend. The subject lands are a regularly shaped and agricultural lot located on the north side of Old Highway 24. Portions of the subject lands are located in hazard lands within the official plan. I would like to note an error, and I apologize to committee member Linda. I do apologize. We did note that it was zoned as environmental protection, but that was an error. It's actually zoned as hazard lands. So I apologize and thank you for picking up on that component. The balance of the report, which you've all seen, does verify it appropriately. Again, I won't belabor the point, but Section 45(1) does permit the granting of minor relief of the provisions of the zoning bylaw to Committee of Adjustment. I'm not going to belabor the point for you to go through it, but if there's any question in that regard, please let me know. I do note that Section 732A does apply here, and as you can see within the report, there is a question of safe access, which will follow through with a recommendation. Although these are outside of hazard lands, they are on the borderline of hazard lands, and we do recommend refusal of the application in this regard. However, notice of the application was provided to all registered property owners within 60 meters as required under the Planning Act, including local Indigenous communities with no comments received, Hydro One, no comments received, Union Gas, no comments received, Canada Post, no comments. Norfolk County GIS did say that the additional dwelling unit will require a new civic address if approved, and the applicant should fill out the civic address request form to GIS. The Norfolk County Fire Department did note that they had no concerns at this point in time. Long Point Region Conservation Authority have advised that the proposed residential accessory dwelling unit is located outside of the natural hazard lands and have no objection to the application. A permit is required from them under Regulation 401-24, which is prohibited activities, exemptions, and permits is not required under LPRCAs. Comments are attached in full, which are within, I won't belabor that point for you, they're within the planning report. Norfolk County Development Engineering comments have been received. They have noted that as per County Bylaw 2017, to regulate lock grading and drainage, that a drainage plan would be required at the time a building permit is applied. Norfolk County Building Department has also provided no comment. However, they have noted that no building code application review has been provided at this point in time. I suspect that's due to limited information that they have pending this conversation and decision. The zoning instrument administrator has provided that there is deficiency with respect to height. There's a deficiency with usable floor area. The usable floor areas are not calculated properly on the application, and there's no comments that have been provided from the public at this time. The recommendation from planning staff is that ANPL 2024-303 Elliott Todd for the relief to permit an addition to a seasonal detached dwelling unit should be refused at this point in time based on the application. The reason being that in accordance with Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requests do not meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan, nor do they meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw in permitting the development in areas without safe access during times of flooding. I will leave it to that, and through you, Mr. Chair, if there's any questions from the committee, I'm happy to answer them at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's an applicant or an agent present. Okay, thank you. And any questions of the committee to the planner? Does the agent have something to add?
Yes, I do.
Good afternoon, Dave.
Good afternoon. As you can imagine, I take great exception to the comments made by the planner. This is, I don't know where the notion came that this is a seasonal building. The building is there. It was built. If any of you attended the site, it's the big red building with the gambrel roof. The building was constructed by building permit in 2022. In 2021, we worked with the Conservation Authority to realign the hazard land lines so that all buildings on this property are well outside of the hazard land. And I have a map produced by LPRCA to that effect. Then Norfolk County amended the zoning map, and I have a copy of that right here, so that all buildings on the property, including the subject building, are well outside of the hazard land lines. And that map matches what the Conservation Authority did in 2021. So in 2022, we were issued a building permit to construct the building, and it's there, but it was built as a farm building. Subsequently, the Elliots wanted to establish an ADU on the second floor, but the building code does not permit an ADU within an agricultural building. So I have submitted a change of use building permit application, which is filed with the county now, to convert that agricultural building to a residential accessory building, which will then allow an ADU. However, the ADU is proposed on the second floor, and so I need relief from the maximum permitted height, because an ADU maximum permitted height is only 5 meters. This being on the second floor would be greater than that. So I need relief of that. On the first page of the planner's report, Ms. Spencer's reason for refusal is based solely on the safe access, which is, the access is the driveway, and it crosses a little dinky tributary of Davis Creek. If she had attended the site, she would have been able to see that the driveway passes over top of a concrete box culvert, which is typical that you see on any county road or street. This little dinky tributary of Davis Creek is 2.5 feet wide and 6 inches deep in the deepest spot. I live at the north end of town. Coming here tonight, I passed over Davis Creek, Patterson Creek, and a tributary of Youngs Creek, all of which are, it's a box culvert. Two of them are on Norfolk Street, one's on Queen Street. Hazard land strip goes across the creek. Nobody's questioning safe access when I'm driving down Norfolk Street or up Queen Street. So this is a totally moot point. Ms. Ms. Spencer also should have taken note that the hazard land was amended in 2021 by both the CA and Norfolk County staff. The buildings that we're talking about tonight are all outside of that area. I even have, if you're curious, I can give you the building permit number for the building, the red building that's there. I can also give you the building permit number for the change of use permit I filed with the county to permit the ADU on the second floor. On page 2 of her report, Ms. Spencer states that the applicant proposes to relocate the garage to a location outside of the flood hazard. That's absolutely not true, because the building's already there. It's not being relocated anywhere. It's there. The building was built via a building permit, and the hazard land line was moved so that this building could be established. On the bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4 of the planning report, again, it reads the area where the proposed ADU is to be constructed, where the ADU is to be constructed is in designated hazard land. Absolutely not true at all. It's well outside of the hazard land. Same with the figure 2 shown on page 4 of the planning report. Those hazard land lines were moved in 2021. I don't know where that diagram came from, but it's absolutely false. Otherwise, the building permit that was issued for the construction of this barn at that time would not have been issued. Ms. Spencer goes on about the hazard land mapping again on page 5 of our report. I've already shown you the maps that show that that's not true. Even in LPRCA's comments, they state categorically that the ADU as proposed is outside of the lands under their jurisdiction. And no permit from LPRCA is required for the construction of this building. Now I want to address the comments made about the reliefs being sought that were calculated incorrectly by the applicant, and that's me. I submitted this application to planning in August, and I only got comments back this past Friday, in which it goes on and on and on about miscalculations. My point is, no one had the decency to contact me between August and November to query me as to why my calculations didn't match theirs. So immediately Friday, after getting this, I rushed over to the county office to meet with the zoning administrator to go over these calculations, and I was told, well, you can't expect me to meet with you today. You'll have to make an appointment. And I said, we're talking the 11th hour, because between Friday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon, there's only 2 working days. So I made an appointment for Monday. We met, we hashed this out Monday. We argued again on Tuesday, and we have finally come to an agreement on our calculations. There was a misunderstanding. The stairs were counted twice, which you can't do. And I calculated the usable floor area of the ADU as on the inside, whereas he calculates it from the exterior. So that adds a bit of space. I deducted because this is a gambrel roof that slopes like right down to the floor, I deducted 4 feet all the way around because that's enclosed by knee walls. It's dead space, but he still wants to count that. So the reliefs sought that we have agreed to, I've given to Annette. In principle, nothing has changed in my application other than figures. And the Planning Act allows amended figures to be agreed on tonight. It doesn't have to be recirculated. So I'm asking for relief of 0.52 meters from the maximum height of 8 meters to permit a residential accessory building with a maximum height of 8.52 meters. The only reason I'm doing that is I agreed to that in order to get a building permit. The set of plans produced when the building was constructed comply with 8 meters. But the set of plans produced for the ADU, that designer put in the figure of 8.52, so I have to, I just want my permit, so I'm agreeing to that.
Just give me that number again,
0.52 to permit, see, because I'm going from an agricultural building to a residential accessory building as an intermediate step. So I need to get it approved as a residential accessory building, and the maximum height of that is permitted is 8 meters. I'm asking for 8.52 meters. Then, still keeping in mind that I'm going from agricultural to residential accessory, I'm asking for relief of 153 square meters from the maximum permitted floor area of 200 square meters to permit a residential accessory building totaling 353 square meters. In actual fact, this building has a footprint of 99 square meters, but the way the zoning bylaw is worded, we have to sum the basement with the first floor and then with the second floor, so that's how I arrive at that number. We've agreed on that. Then I'm asking, now that it's a residential accessory building, now I want to build an ADU on the second floor. So I'm asking relief of 3.25 meters from the maximum permitted height of an ADU of 5 meters to permit an ADU on the second floor of an accessory building. Okay?
I'm following you.
Okay, good. So then, after that, now I'm asking for relief of 34.77 square meters from the maximum permitted ADU usable floor area of 75 square meters to permit an ADU of 109.77 square meters.
Just run that one again for me.
Relief of 34.77 square meters
Yeah,
from the maximum permitted ADU usable floor area of 75 square meters
okay.
to permit an ADU with a usable floor area of 109.77 square meters.
Okay.
And like I said before, I calculated the interior dimensions less the 4 feet around the outside edge that you have to get down on your hands and knees to access, and it's sealed off by knee walls anyway, so it's completely dead. But the zoning administrator is going by exterior dimensions. The previous zoning administrator, who's no longer employed with Norfolk County, used inside dimensions. So that's where that confusion arose. And I've given a copy of this to Annette so that your decision sheet could be amended. And I'm respectfully asking that you approve this application.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm here for any questions.
Yes, any questions of the committee? Councillor Van Passen.
I'm not sure if this is a question, more of a comment, but I'll try to word it that way, because I've wondered for years why the planning department uses a different method to calculate area than does the building department, then does the fire department, then does the insurance brokers, and why we can't sit down in a room one day and all agree on which way to measure it so we don't run into these situations.
Yes, I agree.
Again.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Anybody else, questions, comments? Linda, good. Councillor Ferry.
I suppose I would like to know if there's an answer to Councillor Van Passen's question. So I'll throw that to Mohammed, I guess.
Through Mr. Chair, I can tell that the new approach that the building provided is aligning with planning. So now at least planning and building are on the same page.
Okay, thank you. Lorelei, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Just to follow on that point, clarification is the zoning interpretation, which should follow consistently through planning and building. I do understand the point that the applicant is making and the agent. However, I will state that the fundamental issue here does rely upon safe access. And the fundamental component is the relationship upon the provincial policy statement and those guidelines with relationship to safe access in terms of times of flooding. I will note that the applicant's agent has stated very succinctly that he does not feel that these hazard areas are justified. However, that is not the point. They will become justified in the point of times of those 100-year maximum events, and that is what the Planning Act and all of the conservation regulatory authorities are circumventing to prevent those issues coming into play. So I think that's something that the committee needs to consider. Obviously, the decision is at the will of the committee, but that is a fundamental planning decision and recommendation that we provided to you in that regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further from the committee to either the planning consultant or the agent? Linda?
I just have a comment, Alan. I just want to say that I respect that Laura Lee is providing a recommendation based on the information that she has available. So even though I feel the safe access is probably not an issue in this particular instance, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm sure if Laura Lee maybe went and saw the property, she may feel the same way, but she's basing her decision and recommendation based on what information she has available. And the staff at the Long Point Conservation Authority ultimately didn't have a problem with the application and said that they feel it's consistent with Section 3.1 of the provincial policy. So I will be supporting the application, but I just wanted Laura Lee to know that I do respect where she's coming from.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. There's just two things that I wanted to bring up. One is that it is not the responsibility of planners to verify zoning. We are here to assess the applications as submitted. So if anyone has any questions or queries about the zoning requirements for their development, they need to seek a zoning review prior to submitting an application. That is not something that planners are here to do. We often do it, and we'll notice things as we're going through, but we are not there to give a zoning review after an application has been submitted until such time as it's been circulated to our zoning administrators. The second one was, I just wanted to suggest, If this were to be approved, given that this is still an agricultural building and you can't approve an ADU in an ag building, that a condition would be put on in order to basically saying that the approval of the any deficiencies or the minor variance is contingent on the successful approval of the change of use permit. Because we cannot be permitting an ADU in a building that is inappropriate for an ADU. And I would also sort of query whether or not some of these changes that have come up in terms of the zoning deficiencies could be seen as significant enough that really it would warrant a re-advertising. I mean, it's not changing by half a meter here and there. One of them is over 10 square meters of change. I myself, if I had seen, if this were my file, I would be seeking probably a deferral for that on that basis alone. However, it is up to you as the committee to use your discretion. Thanks.
I just wanted to ask you, Andrew, so you're saying about a condition regarding the successful application to change the
use.
A residential use?
Yes.
Okay,
Because we can't approve
clear.
an ADU in an ag building.
Okay,
I'd like to comment on that.
I don't want to get into a big back and forth here, so I'll give you the last word, Dave, and then I'll go see if there's any public comment.
Okay, as I said in my presentation, I submitted an application to change the use from an agricultural building to a residential accessory building. That application is in process with the building department and is only held in limbo at today's date, awaiting this application being successful. So there's no need to add any conditions because my application is in limbo until this is approved, and then it will be issued. And once that's issued, then I can apply for a building permit for the ADU within an accessory building. So all the I's are dotted. It's just in limbo until this is approved.
Okay, thank you. Linda?
I understand what Dave's saying, but I don't think by adding that condition, it's going to cause any grief to the applicant. It's just reassuring that what we're approving is going to be in not an agricultural building. So I kind of agree with putting the condition there. I don't think it's going to cause Dave any grief or his clients any grief.
Councillor Mann-Passon?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and through you, I sort of disagree with that concept because what this committee would do is say that it is allowed to have certain things. Until they get the change of use, they won't get a building permit, so nothing will change. So putting that condition on makes no difference because if the building department doesn't issue the building permit, nothing will be built. It won't be an ADU. It'll just be the barn it always was, and this whole process has just been wasted. So adding extra conditions just makes no sense to me.
Oh, okay. Laura Lee?
Thank you, and I'm sorry to interject, but through applicable law, your chief building official cannot issue a building permit for change of use if it does not meet applicable law. So putting a condition on a minor variance that is not approved isn't going to support the ability for them to go through and do further concepts to define that they have safe access. You're still in a conundrum. And quite frankly, I think this is not a very good decision at this point in time. I think at best, you can find an alternative solution through a deferral if you don't want to provide a refusal at this stage of committee, but you cannot have your chief building official issue something that's not under applicable law. He cannot issue a building permit at this point in time for anything to do with an additional residential dwelling unit.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the committee? Hearing none, is there anyone present or online that wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, the recommendation is for refusal. Can I get a motion from the committee for that or an alternative? Councillor
I'll
Berry.
move to approve.
Councillor Berry.
I'm going to move a deferral.
Move to a deferral?
Yep.
Okay. Can I get a seconder to a deferral?
Fair enough.
No seconder, that motion dies on the table. Councillor Van Passen.
Okay, I'll be the one that gets myself in trouble, but I will move for approval with the agreed-upon recalculations that have been presented by Mr. McPherson, which, in my mind, doesn't require recirculation because nothing has changed on that building. It has been there for 2 years. It's not like they've added the extra 0.52 meters. There was just a disagreement on the proper way to calculate it, and that's been agreed upon now. So like nothing's changing. They're not adding more floor space. It's just on how that was calculated. It's been agreed on by both the administrator and the applicant. And I don't think that even the numbers are that large that it would require a recirculation. And I'm sure that somebody will tell me I'm wrong later, but I can live with that. The safe access, I also have no concerns.
So can I just get a seconder before we,
Well, I just want to make sure that they understand why
Okay.
before somebody might want to second it. So,
Linda?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
okay. Well, no, the safe access as well, that it's not within the hazard land zone where the building is. The access does cross that,
Sort of
I
a
wouldn't
creek.
call it a creek, I'd call it a ditch. And understanding, the soil types of Norfolk County, I can recall the day in my younger days, prime and tobacco at 8 o'clock, or early in the morning, it started to rain at 8:30. At 11:30 it quit. Our 6-inch rain gauge was full, and that meant we couldn't start priming again until tomorrow morning, or the next morning. So if safe access is a concern when we got the 100-year storm, I don't even think it's a problem then in that area, because it is pretty sandy, well-drained soil, and it's not going to block them in. So,
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Anybody else have any debate, comments, questions? Those questions are finished. I'll call the question. All in favor to approve?
Yes.
And opposed? Thank you. And that is carried.
Thank you. Are you open to one more question? Can I
I've already
just,
signed the decision.
sorry?
I've already signed the decision.
Oh, well, that's what I just want to make sure that what you've signed is perfect. Okay, thank you very
These-
much.
The new calculations will be attached to the decision.
Thank you.
Right, okay, thanks, Dave. Okay, so next up, we have file number ANPL 2024318, and the planner can give the report, please.
Please advise when you can see the screen that I'm sharing.
Not yet. There we go, okay.
All right, so we're speaking to minor variance application ANPL 2024-318. And I really do apologize because I'm not certain that I'm going to say this properly. Scherpenziel, Adrian, Vanderplat, Adrian, and Vanderplat, Jennike. I apologize again if I've totally made that an error. I'm sorry about that.
That sounds pretty good to
So
me.
we're talking about, I tried. Everyone ruins my name anyway, too, so my apology is extended. But we're talking about parcel 4 through 2, section D5, within Townsend, part unit 4, plan being D37, 5, part 1, 37R, 3301, within Norfolk County. So, through you, Mr. Chair, an application has been received to vary the provisions of subsection 12.1.3 of the zoning bylaw to allow for a reduction of the minimum distance separation requirement of 152 meters to allow a total MDS of 98.9 meters, a significant reduction of 53.1 meters in total to the nearest residential dwelling units. The effect of which is to permit the construction of a new livestock facility and milking parlor to expand the existing goat operation on the subject lands. The lands are located on the west side of O'Mahony Road, northwest of the intersection of Concession 14, Townsend, and O'Mahony Road. The lands have a lot area of plus or minus 10 hectares, which is 24.7 acres, and a lot frontage of 373.3 meters along O'Mahony Road. A lot depth of approximately 293.97 meters, which would be 965 feet approximately to the north and 289 meters to the south. The subject lands currently contain a single detached dwelling unit, 2 livestock facilities contained for goat housing and a milking parlor and an accessory structure. The applicant does propose to construct a new livestock facility and milking parlor in close proximity to the existing facilities. The issue of this application lies at hand. As you know, Section 45(1) of the Planning Act does provide the granting of minor variance in this regard. And planning staff have taken a note of the proximity. I'm going to describe this one in a little bit more detail, just a little bit outside of what I would normally do here, but just to understand, this is the proposed area here, if you can see my cursor. This is the milking parlor that is proposed, and this is the existing structures that exist on the property. The issue related to this application is probably not common to minor variance applications before this committee. It's to the residential dwelling unit here and the residential dwelling unit here. The residential dwelling unit to this side is not an impact on that conversation. So I just want to make that very clear of what that looks like. So the effect of which is going to allow them to construct these structures. Unfortunately, they cannot meet the minimum distance separation 2 requirements. I'm not sure how familiar this committee is with dealing with those matters of that nature, so I'm happy to discuss it further after I go through the presentation of what this looks like. Here's just the notice that we have received the application, and just to give you a visual look at the property in general itself. We are recommending that the application be deferred, not denied. We would like the applicant to take the opportunity to move the structures to a different location on the property to allow for the ability for MDS possibly not to be maintained, but to be more satisfied, if that makes sense to the committee. I want to provide that the notice of the application was provided to all registered property owners, including the local Indigenous community, where no comments were received, Hydro One, where no comments were received, Union Gas, where no comments were received, Canada Post had no comments, as this will not impact mail delivery, GIS had no comments, Norfolk County Fire Department had no concerns, the LPRCA had no concerns, Norfolk County Development Engineering Department only stated that there will be a bylaw to regulate lot grading and drainage, and a grading plan will be required at the time of building permit application. The Building Permit Department of Norfolk County also stated they have no comments or concerned, and they're encouraged to reach out to the building department prior to the application for anything going forward. The proposed building from the zoning department's perspective is 136 meters away from the dwelling unit and 117 meters away from the dwelling unit on the property. I will note that internally, as planning consultant, we did conduct the calculations, so I will admit that these calculations from the zoning department differ. I do have somewhat qualified experience in the MDS regard, so I want to assure you that we did take into consideration of the concerns of the zoning department, but we did do our separate MDS2 calculations, which are calculated and shown within the report. No comments from the public have been received at this time. We are recommending that the application not be denied, but be deferred so they can have the opportunity to potentially relocate the structures and provide a more potential location. I would like to add, just as a sidebar, when you're dealing with MDS in general, and I'm sure you're going to see it more often than not, it really is a distance between non-conforming uses. Minimum distance separation 1 is applied when you're looking for lot calculations. You're looking for the creation of a new lot. This is not that. This is the separation of distances from other non-conforming uses, and it's called MDS2. So there is a difference, and there is a difference in how that is calculated, and it's a very complicated calculation, but it is very much guided by OMAFRA. There is a calculated program that is used, and ultimately they're grossly deficit in being able to provide that separation distance, which sometimes is referred to as a smell distance from those two uses. So I want the committee to understand that we're not trying to be mindful of, obviously we would like operations to continue, but I do believe there is an alternative solution here on this particular property, and I'm happy to speak to it further at your regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there an agent or applicant present or on the line? Hearing none. Any questions from the committee?
I have one, Ellen.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Just to staff, do we know if the current facility meets the MDS2 guidelines? Do you have any idea? To Laura Lee?
Okay, I didn't know if you were
Sorry.
speaking to Andrew or me. At this point in time, it would not meet current guidelines relative to its location. And I know I should have reiterated that to committee in general, so I apologize for not. However, those guidelines came into effect prior to the application itself. So we have to remember that there are scenarios where those types of situations exist. It is at the will of the committee to approve as they will. However, I do believe that there should be some consideration for a better setback to accommodate the facilities that they require. I do understand that they probably have some operational components they're trying to include there. However, if you're going to meet provincial policy and OMAFRA requirements, it grossly does not meet those requirements. So they have changed since that building was constructed. So you are correct, but.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make another call. Is there an applicant or agent online to this application? Hearing none, is there anyone else present that wishes, or online, that wishes to speak to this application? Hearing none, we have a recommendation for a deferral, and we have no applicant or agent to speak to it, so I'm inclined to ask for that motion. Councillor Very.
I'll make that motion. Sorry.
Councillor Very, you're moving the deferral? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. And Linda,
And
a second?
I'll second. Yeah.
Okay. So application ANPL 2024318 in a name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce because Laura Lee did it better than I could even try to, has been moved by Councillor Very, seconded by Linda to be deferred. All those in favor? Pardon me. Go ahead. Sorry. Questions?
Well,
comments?
not question, debating the motion. I can't understand the reason. You can't move it. Like, if you put it on the other side of the barn, you're going to have the same distance to the residents to the south as you now have to the north. Moving it back by another 20 or 30 feet is going to make no difference in reality. The structure the front part that is closest to the residence is the milking parlor. That, I don't know if you've ever been in a dairy or goat milking parlor. It would put my house to shame on how sanitary and clean and all of that is, just to meet all the requirements of the thing. So, and the location of the milking parlor is to join the Olden, so they got some connection. And I, like, to move the barn back by 20 or 30 feet, what difference is it gonna make? Like it's, the existing structures are not right. Adding some more can't make it not righter. Moving it back by 20 or 30 feet is not gonna make any difference. You know, whether you're granting relief of, what is it, 98 meters or 78 meters, it's still gonna serve the same purpose. So I can't understand why, talking to the applicants and trying to move the barn to somewhere else, there's just not room to make any difference in the end result. So I guess I'll be voting against the motion. So.
Okay. On the other hand, we don't have anyone to discuss it with, the applicant or an agent, so to get their side of the story. Anyway, we have a motion on the floor for a deferral. Any other debate, questions, nothing like that? Linda?
Well, I'm just going to say moving it back would possibly reduce the required relief or reduce the gap in the MDS2 requirement. So moving it back would be an improvement, I think, if the applicant could do that. And I'm disappointed that there's no one here actually tonight to speak to the application.
Yeah, okay. So again, the motion is for a deferral, and I will call the question. All those in favor of deferral? And
Yes.
one against? Thank you, and that motion is carried. The deferral stamp.
Sounds like Mother Nature's having a temper fit up there.
Okay. So last up, Laura Lee, I will just ask you, we have 3 applications. You're going to present them together, I guess?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I would prefer to provide them concurrently. They're all related.
Yes.
It's up to you how you would like to proceed, but the report is written concurrently.
Okay, so I'll just rhyme them off here. File number BNPL 2024-079, ANPL 2024-080, and ANPL 2024-333 in the name of Carrie Cripple and Kevin Constantine. And the planner can go ahead and give the report, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I will try to keep this as simplistic as possible because I do understand there's 3 applications at hand for a committee to understand. Through the chair, a consent to sever application has been received. I'll start there. That is the first and foremost. Let's be careful when we approve or disagree with the decision on this matter. It needs to happen first. And the purpose of this application is to sever 0.17 hectares of residential lands and retain 0.08 hectares of residential lands, the effect of which will create 2 residential parcels, each of which will contain an existing single detached dwelling within the hamlet designation. I'm going to share the photo now of the presentation. So you can see these are the subject lands in general. Sorry. So again, I've gone through this in terms of the severance application itself. By virtue of the application, we're going to discuss 2 separate minor variance applications because the assumption will be here that the consent is approved. So those applications have been provided in conjunction with that consent for consideration by the committee. I'm going to stop sharing at this point unless you want to see this in a bigger screen, if that's of any assistance to anyone as we go forward.
Actually, it would be, yes.
Okay. Let me try to find a better way here to just button this up a little. Can you see that okay? Is it too small?
It's not bad, just
Okay.
carry on.
All right, I'll continue. All right, so with the considerations of the minor variance, I just want to go through those. So what's happening here is our two existing residential dwelling units. I'm going to be a little bit more casual about this one. They exist on one lot. How that happened is a different story for another day, let's be quite frank. There is a garage that does abut the proposed property line. That garage will be required to be removed as a condition of consent to separate the issues related to who has ownership regarding the new lot line, if approved. So the purpose of the application for Lot 1, being what you would see to your severed lands to the left, is to vary the provisions of 572A, 572BI, 572C, 572D, and 572E. So this is going to, in effect, recognize several deficiencies of the subject lands that are already in existence at this point in time. What I want to explain to the committee is that at this point in time, the moment you touch that lot line and change things, you have to recognize deficiencies. So this isn't a hardship on them. It's the moment you touch that, you have to recognize what those deficiencies are. It can no longer be what's considered a legal non-conforming or non-complying use. It's not non-conforming, it actually is non-complying. And once that lot line is established, to change it, this is why the variances are at hand. So the purpose of the application for the second lot, which you'll see to your right here, is that it's to vary the provisions of, again, 572A, 572BI, 572C, 572D, and 572E. Again, we're looking at reduced lot area, a minimum lot area, lot frontage, meters and feet, side yard setback, front yard setback, etc. None of this is changing the scenario of this effect of the property at this point in time. That is really not the crux of this application. So as you can tell, the subject lands are located on the east side of 3rd Concession Road, NTR, north of Highway 3, and southeast within the boundary of the town of Tilsonburg. So they currently contain a lot area, which is undersized, to be clear, of 0.1687 hectares, with a frontage of approximately 32.6 meters. They have 2 single detached dwelling units on the property, and this detached accessory structure being the garage that I spoke to earlier. All they're doing is separating the 2 individual dwelling units into these parcels that actually I can show you in a more appropriate way here. This is what it looks like. This will be removed, this being the accessory structure that I speak to, 2 separate driveways, excuse my error there, and this is the existing structure, this is the existing structure. We're recognizing their existing setbacks to these potential areas. Another fundamental component to this application, and I'm sorry to be diatribing so long, but we do have to recognize that a private well and septic system are required for this property. And in that sense, we need to make sure, under provincial guidelines, that existing septic and well that they've been using, which will now be separated, is sufficiently away from dwelling units adjacent to them and existing septic systems. So the septic system to your right here that's going to be installed, and the well, needs to be of sufficient distance away, not only from existing septics, from existing wells, to provide security that everyone's going to have safe and sufficient private services. So that is the only fundamental question here. We did have some information that was provided by a qualified professional through soil test reports and Globe. In addition, so they established there's an adequate T time, which is the percolation time essentially related to a septic system. It can be achieved for the second lot to the right, because at the current time, the severed lands are the ones that contain the appropriate septic system. So just to give you information in that regard, we also had a hydrogeological study provided by the applicant, which was provided in July of this year, and supports the use of private services on the subject lands. That report does satisfy the fact that there is the ability for those services to be on private services for those 2 dwelling units, which is not going to impact adjacent wells and septic and their ability to move forward. There are a number of things that, as you'll have seen in the report, again, I won't belabor Section 45(1) of the Act for the granting of minor variances. You can see there is the proposed table that's been provided in the planning report. I will say to you that the application has been provided to landowners within 60 meters of the subject application. Canada Post had no concerns. Norfolk County GIS has stated no concerns, as each dwelling unit currently has its own GIS civic address number. A county fire department has no concerns. The zoning department have no further concerns. The building department has reviewed the proposal and has provided following comments. A final septic permit letter indicating the septic system has been installed in conformance with Ontario Building Code Unit 28. Fair and fine, that's a condition for them to receive at the building permit component stage as part of this application, as part of a condition of the consent as well. Receipt from the building inspector that the demolition permit has been finalized for the accessory building on the proposed property line, meaning the garage that we spoke to earlier. The septic permit for Unit 22 has been installed. They have provided a copy of that application. They have also stated that no Ontario Building Code review has been completed at this time and will be done at the appropriate building permit stage if that is required. They have no concerns related to either of the variance applications. The applicant is encouraged to contact the building department if there is any future development on the property, which I do anticipate and have understood through the application process may occur in future. They're encouraged to contact them for planning or for further building approvals once planning approvals have been provided. The engineering, Norfolk County Development Engineering Department has provided that they've following conditions and comments. So the drainage assessment reapportionment will be undertaken. That's a condition provided as part of the conditioning report. As per Norfolk County Bylaw 2016-32, an entrance permit is required. As part of the planning report, I did discuss how each property will have a separate entrance. That is a requirement for them to be able to do so. Any modifications or changes made to the existing entrance require further comment in that regard as well. And both parcels are required to have individual driveways, all relating to the same issue. There is the request for that shared accessory dwelling unit, which we spoke to earlier. It must be removed as part of this application and will be a condition which the building department will need to verify has been completed with a demolition permit as spoken to earlier. A log grading plan will be required at the time of building permit application if there is one. Any modifications or changed to the existing entrance will also have requirements from the building department for their review as well, as spoken to earlier in verbatim. A lot grading plan, again, at the time of building permit application is required. However, further to that, there's no other areas of concern and no comments from the public have been received at this time. Again, the recommendation from staff is that this application be approved on the condition that also the minor variance applications are approved to reciprocate those conditions and comments that have been received from commenting agencies. Happy to comment further as required. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there an applicant or agent present or on the line?
Yes.
And you are?
My name is Oloyede Fatogun. I am the agent.
Can you just repeat your name, please?
Oloyede Fatogun.
Did you get it? I got the agent. Okay. Mohammed.
Mr. Chair, before you go to any discussion, I just want to add that we received a public comment, a neighbor's comment, and my apology to Ms. Spencer as well. We did not able to provide that to you. It came very lately. So the concern that Mr. Greg Spurzinski, the neighbor of this property to the right, to the left side, he provided two concerns. One is the proposed septic system is close to his property line, and he wants to get he has to ensure that it's not affecting the retaining wall that the adjacent property. So there is a retaining wall between the properties here. So he wants to get he wants to get a confirmation that the retaining wall will not be affected with that proposed septic tank and the weeping bed. And the second concern he mentioned is about the distance between the septic systems. So the proposed and the distance between the septic and I believe, yes, the distance between the septic systems it should be 15 meters, but obviously that will be confirmed by the building when there will be a permit required. I don't see any issue with the second concern, but the first concern is about the septic system and the distance from the retaining wall.
The 15 meters. Okay, well, we'll get into that. That's what you're referring to, Mohammed, is the 15-meter one? That's the condition that, or the concern that,
the concern was, there are two concerns. One is the
Yeah.
distance between the septic system, which is 50 meter. I believe that is not a concern because when the permit will be provided, they will definitely will consider those safety concerns.
okay,
And the other one is the distance from the existing retaining wall, his retaining wall to the proposed septic system.
okay. Oh, just a minute, hang on a second. You have to, through the chair, turn your mic on.
It's just being misread, that's all. Is that his concern is that the proposed well is too close to his septic bed on the front.
I think
Mr. Chair, there is
Spazinski-
no proposed well. I mean, I believe this is this will be serviced by private by public service, public water.
I think Mr. Sporinsky is on the line, is he not? Are
Or
you
there is
on
a
the?
proposed well? Or maybe one can confirm if there will be a proposed well.
Okay, well, let me just go through this. Is there any questions of the committee to the planner? Laura Lee, you have your hand up, I see.
I just wanted to clarify that the question of the separation distance between the proposed well and septic is outside of the purview of committee.
Right.
That is the responsibility of your chief building official. And if it does not meet those conditions, a permit cannot be issued for them to provide those services. So if you want to make that a condition, as we have suggested, wherein they can provide those services and have those appropriate permits in place, you can provide provisional approval for consent at this point in time. If they are unable to satisfy those conditions, then essentially the consent would lapse, and that would be the end of it to establish it. But it's not the purview of the committee to determine those setback requirements. We're not chief building officials. We're not professionals in that regard. So I would hazard that that would be outside of what you would like to speak to at this moment in time, just to
Okay,
give you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? The Secretary Treasurer.
Yes, so I just wanted to mention that he's not able to unmute himself.
Oh.
But he's putting information in the chat.
Okay, so the commenter, Mr. Sporinsky, is having trouble with unmuting himself, so he's commenting to our Secretary Treasurer through the chat. And can you just give us a synopsis of what he's?
He's typing right now, but he did say the concern is the distance between the proposed well and the existing septic.
Okay, so he's concerned with the proposed well and the existing septic, and we'll let the agent speak to that in a minute. Councillor Van Passen, you have something to say? I can just tell.
I need to say this because I very seldom get a chance to completely agree with Lorelei on the recommendation that one of the conditions she is recommending is that it's going to be up to somebody else to make sure that the well and septic meet all the conditions put in place by the Ministry of Environment and everyone else. And if that condition can't be met, then the severance will lapse and it becomes a moot point. So
Okay.
again,
And
thank
we-
you very much, Lorelei, for pointing that out to us.
That we're not chief building officials. Linda?
I'm just agreeing with Councillor Van Passen and Lorelei.
Okay, and I hope that Mr. Sperinsky is monitoring our conversation here, and he is assured that his...
Wanted everybody to see the map.
Yes, we've taken note of the map, and now I will turn it over to the agent or applicant if he has anything to add.
No further comments to add.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone present online or in the house that wishes to speak to this application? And it seems that Mr. Sperinsky is satisfied, correct? Okay, good. His concerns are satisfied.
As long as the well's in the correct.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
can I just ensure that the conditions related to this application are read out loud, just to ensure that the conditions related to the well and septic and those respective permits are included as conditions? I just want to ensure the applicant and their agent that they have responsibilities in that regard. Regardless, they would anyway, but I think it would probably resolve the concerns of the adjacent landowner and those of the responsibilities of the committee.
Okay, so I will ask the agent, are you fine with all the conditions as they are laid out?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So we have three decisions to make. I will start with the severance, BNPL 2024079. The recommendation is approval. Can I get a motion from the committee? Phil and Chris. Comments, debate? Call the question. All those in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you. And approved. So second up is a minor variance, ANPL 2024080. Again, it was a recommendation for approval. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Chris and Phil. ANPL 2024080. All those in favor? That
Yes.
is carried. Thank you. My signature's getting awful. Okay, and last up we have, excuse me, ANPL 2024333, a minor variance, again recommended for approval, and a motion to Councillor Berry and Phil. So all in favor?
Yes.
That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so last business is we have a motion to adjourn. Moved by, seconded by, all in favor. That's carried. And thank you, everyone, and we will see you next month.